Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the second season of the virtual anime Sword Art Online, which is called Sword Art Online 2. Yeah, it's very creative.
This season takes place 2 years after the first series, when a virtual killer known as Death starts to kill players in the game and real life. Kirito is hired by the government to infiltrate Gun Gale and to find out how these killings are happening.
And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and Roll Paws videos.
Yes.
Yeah, so... sorry, I was like, what happened there? It went out?
Yes.
I was like, okay, yeah, so... This season had a whole different feel from the first season. It looks like because it was like a long gap between seasons 1 and 2, like it didn't come back for a few years. So I guess that's why it feels a little different, and you also can tell they're using more of the current technology in the show now. Because it's all about the VR and being in this fantasy land. But they get to this season, now they're in the real world. Now you're seeing more of the technology, more of the modern day stuff. Even though it's supposed to be like 20, 25, 26 or something in this show.
And then you also get to see 2 different environments in this game. You've got the Gun Gale arc for the first half, and then for the second half you have the fantasy realm again.
Right.
Which you were happy to see again. Gun Gale was a bit too much gunnish for me. It was too much gun. The best part of Gun Gale was Miss Kirito.
Yeah, we actually had seen this Gun Gale Online thing on Netflix. We didn't watch it, but I knew it had something to do with Sword Art. I figured it was a spin-off to it, but I didn't know when it came in. I didn't know it was actually part of the series. I thought it came in like maybe the series was over, which, you know, Sword Art isn't finished yet. But I thought at the time like Sword Art was finished and this was like a spin-off, which it kind of is, but the show is still going. And Gun Gale is basically an American spin-off taking place in the anime.
Right. And it's not that Gun Gale wasn't interesting, it definitely was, but I think we see so many games like that, and we've seen so many shows like that, and we've seen so many movies like that. For me, it was refreshing to see the Sword Art fantasy art.
Right.
And so although again this was interesting, we got to meet a new character that Kirito made friends with and also is friends with in the real world. I was really happy when we went back to the fantasy arc and we got to see Asuna and his sister and the other players again.
Right. Now we get to, like you said, it's split into like 2 different arcs. Like the first one is about this for Gun Gale is about, this is sort of this virtual killer called Death Gun, and when he kills the avatar of a person, you know, they're supposed to be there, but you know they're not real. But it seems like when he kills them there, they get killed in the real world too, and then they end up finding them gone in the same place, like maybe a day or 2 later. Right. So they have to go in and stop it because it's saying it's impossible to do it. Well, something has to be done. They're somehow pulling it off.
Right, and then you find out what's really behind it, and wow, it involves characters that were in the previous or the original game with them, and we don't want to give too many spoilers, but man, they sure went through a lot of trouble to do murders in the virtual world. I guess that's better than them going in the real world, but then that wasn't good enough. They wanted to do both. Anyway, they are nefarious and evil and murderous. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, it was really sort of like the darkest part of the season. However, when it gets towards the end, it does get more action oriented. And
again,
right,
Miss Kirito.
Yes, I was just getting to that. They explain what happens there is supposed to be going, I guess, undercover into the Gun Gale game because it's all these different virtual games.
And I guess he doesn't understand the point of or what the meaning of undercover is because he uses his same screen name in this game, and immediately the bad guy, are you a copy or are you the original? And it's like he knew who you were because you used the same screen name. Right. But they tricked him because when he got to this game, all of a sudden he's a girl.
Yeah.
He's a pretty girl.
Right, and he was really confused because all of the male players were kind of flirting or hitting on him, and he's like, what's with these people? And then he looked in the mirror and he all of a sudden this long hair and a delicate face, and his voice didn't change, but his physical appearance did. And
he was so happy. He felt his chest and he said,
and he was really pissed because there was a point when another player came in and he had to pretend he was a newbie, because there were times in there he's really skillful from the other Sword Art game, so when he had to pretend he was new. So when he got to this girl, he really didn't know how to act in front of her, not because he was afraid, because he had to remember he couldn't act like himself. So honestly, he was smiling, talking to her, and then she asked him something, and then when the inside his inner monologue, all you could hear was,
her name is Sina.
Yeah,
Sina.
yeah.
It's so funny.
Anyway, and he said, "Are you okay?" He said, and then inside, and then he's like 2 seconds from snapping.
And then he thinks about how Asuna behaves, and then he goes, his finger on his cheek, and then he puts it on his eye, and he raises his voice, and he looks so cute.
And then it actually works. I mean, that's even funnier. It actually works. Almost like, you sound a little off. Are you alright?
So he and Sina reluctantly partner up to defeat that character, and they do. That's all we'll say.
Yeah.
So then he's able to get out of this game and return back to another fantasy game where he gets to use swords again, and he gets to meet up with all the players from the original game.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Plus
and
his sister.
Right, and he was so used to using the swords and everything, he didn't know how to use a weapon like in Gun Gale, so he kept trying to get a sword like,
he had a lightsaber.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, you sure you want a sword that's kind of weak here? Like, no, that's what he's good with, because every time he has to remember he doesn't have the sword, and he's like, oh wait, there's nothing there. So yeah, this season was really interesting for both halves. I mean, the first half already was really intense in terms of the story. Finding out who Death Gun was. He was sort of like the lunatic of the anime. They always have some type of masked figure that does these vigilante type crimes, and then you have to figure out who they are if they don't already tell you. But in here, you really do have to figure it out, or they don't really tell you or show you until it gets towards the end of the arc, like maybe the last few episodes.
Right. And the second half in the fantasy world, Asuna actually starts branching out. She wants to join another guild. Mm-hmm. They recruit her and ask her for their help in a mission. And then you meet some new characters you haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. She really wants to be close to them, but for one reason in particular, the main character that she really likes, Yuki, does not want to get close to her. Mm-hmm. And then they discover each other in the real world, and then there's an ending that we don't want to spoil again in case you haven't seen it. But this particular season not only got dark in the first half of the season, but the second arc, there's also a different type of darkness and sadness. And didn't expect it, but based on what I've been reading about season 3 and the different parts, this is child's play. It looks like it gets really, really dark and really, really really dark.
Yeah.
Really dark,
yeah,
and even more violent than in the first two. So it seems like the more it progresses, the darker this series gets.
Now, we don't know if this is already part of the manga, like this is the story just adapted, or did they add some things in here when there was the when they went back to the show, like whether some anime changes or what. Because like you said, the feel is entirely different. I mean, season 1 you already had you had a dark part of them not being able to escape the game unless they get killed off or they win. But in here they had like more levels of it being more sinister. And one bad guy in the first one. Here you kind of had several bad people in here, and it wasn't like with some other shows where you see they got a sympathetic side, they're not all that bad. It's like, no, when you find out who these people are, you don't feel sorry for them. They are purely villains and antagonists of the story. There is no redemption. There's no sympathy. There's no empathy. It's just like, hey, these people are real bad news. You don't screw around with them. It's not a joke or something to take lightly. So yeah, they make sure that it stays in its tone throughout the whole time, no matter what the setting is. So I guess, as you said, that's setting up for season 3 and the movies and so forth.
Right. We also learned that Kirito really is gifted technologically.
Mm-hmm.
He can help create games and programs and systems very easily, and it seems to really occupy a lot of his time. Another thing that I thought was really interesting about this particular second half, well, period, you know, Asuna Yuki is her name, and then the one who was their daughter decided to take her name be Yuki.
Right.
And then the girl she becomes friends with in this other guild, her name is Yuki.
It's like,
so
what's up with Yuki?
Interesting that throughout, Yuki is an important part of both. And maybe we'll find out what that significance is later, or why the writer chose to have her last name be Yuki, the virtual daughter Yuki, and then the girl she grows close to in the guild Yuki as well.
Right. And yeah, we have not seen season 3 yet as of recording this podcast. But
we're trying to get it without paying $265.
Yeah, and we thought that Toonami would have it, but it seems like right now they're only
part 3 or
4.
They have part 3 of season 3.
Yeah.
Part 4 hasn't released yet.
Yeah, so we don't know when we'll get back into it to watch season 3, but we will. And we know there are movies as well, and you know the show is still a little bit far from being over, because it looks like there's still some things they haven't covered yet. But we know the manga is finished, but the show isn't, so we'll have to see how much is left for the show. I think there's one more season to go next year, so we should be able to catch up by then. So we only got 1 season and 2 movies left.
Another thing that I thought was great about this particular season is we learned more about Asuna. It seemed to be, the first half seemed to really be about Kirito, and the second half really seemed to be about her. We learned more about her family dynamic, her trying to repair her relationship with her mother, what her mother thinks of Kirito, what her father and mother want for her in terms of her life, and we learned that she's from a wealthy family, and that whole dynamic. So it seems like they actually split the arc between the two of them, and she and the other characters really weren't involved in the first half, but in the second half, they're more involved, but she was the focus of that second half. And Kirito was in it, but not nearly as much as he was, of course, in the first one. So it seems like the first half of the arc was his. I'm sorry, first half of the season, Gun Gale arc was his. And the second half of the season, the return to the Sword Art Fantasy in a different environment was her arc.
Yeah.
But they got to go back to their forest house.
Yeah.
And they got to take all of their friends with them. So that was a nice part.
Yeah, there were some good parts of it that weren't so dark or depressing or sad, so that's a good thing. There's still some balance out. To me, the biggest comedy part is still Miss Kirito.
I think as Rascal called her, Miss Kirito.
Yeah, I couldn't help it. It was hilarious. That's probably the funniest part of either the Gun Gale arc or just the season as a whole. That was my favorite part.
Hopefully Rascal has put a picture here for you so you can enjoy the fun with us. Miss Kirito. But if you've seen season 2, and if you've already even seen part of season 3, if you know how we can see season 3 legally, the beginning of parts 1, 2, and 3, let us know in the comments below.
Yes, and be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
And our continuing coverage of Sword Art Online. Thank you, Phoenix.
Yes. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man. Who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Met her in my dreams. She was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket.